Morning, Kyle.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Let me just, all right. Yeah, no, doing well. I'm excited to chat with the team today and always excited to connect with the Trio family. So
We're excited. Yeah, I think Barney was talking yesterday afternoon about how his introduction for you this morning. So
oh, I don't know if I trust that. I got to be honest. I don't know if I try. I'm just teasing. No, we go way back. I literally my starting day was following in the footsteps of Barney. So let me just add one more slide here to the presentation. Right. So I understand you heard from President Jimenez yesterday.
yes, she had this time slot yesterday, so she spoke to the group from 9 to 10, and great presentation. I heard about the video that depicts, her upbringing and her journey and everything. And so yesterday was my first chance to see it, and no pressure, but yeah, she did a great job.
Oh gosh, no, I know. That's to follow the president is not a good thing for sure.
Yeah, and then after you, we have a representative from COE who's going to be speaking to the group. So
yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
It's been a productive and informative morning sessions. So
I like it. I like it.
So are you still in a temporary location, or have you been able to move back yet?
Yeah, so this is this spot is it's still the temporary. We turned this sort of conference room area into my office and my team here just till at the end of July. And then at the end of July, they'll finish construction down on that end of gosh, where am I? I'm all turned around on that end of campus. And we'll be able to move into some of that renovated space. So yeah, I'm right here next to our student newspaper, the UV Review, and right next to the parking garage. So yeah.
Convenient parking for you?
No, actually it's one you have to pay for. So I park way, I get my steps in. I park far away unless I'm have to dart in and dart out, and then I do the little kiosk thing. So anyway, Kasha, good to see you. Rebecca B, good to see you. Just some of the names and faces I recognize, and everyone else that's joining the call. Well, great to connect with you this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Reyes.
Well, if it isn't Dr. Nye wearing the exact same jacket I'm wearing, it's almost like we planned this.
Right? Fancy running into you here.
Yeah.
Do you need anything?
I am ready to go. I've got my PowerPoint ready to share.
Oh, PowerPoint. Wow.
I know.
I wasn't expecting that. Well done, sir.
Hey, for the Trio family, I'm just going to ask you to be nice in your
we'll see how that. I've made notes, so yeah.
Anthony, good to see you.
Good morning. I remember your speech in Montana, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I was sharing with them yesterday that we went to a microbrewery in Montana, you and I.
Yes, we did. There was many of the microbreweries like in a row. I think we were driving and there was like, which one did we want to go to? And ended up selecting one that had nice, I think it was hot wings or something that we ended up getting. So, well, at some point I'll make it back out to some sort of regional Aspire or even a national conference. And Barney, just to be reminded, I'm wrapping up 5 to the hour on the hour. 9:50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That work?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
That works.
Paul, I like your background. I guess, is that available through the regional website? Or did you make it?
I made it.
Ah,
I can send it
Very
your
nice.
way. Which I have a
That's cool.
question for you and Barney as well. So I downloaded the recordings for the past 2 days last night, and I need to get do we have a platform where that can be put out for the attendees to have access to it? They're large files, so I don't think emailing would be a viable option.
I would think the website, but then that opens it up to everybody. I bet we could get it into Dropbox. Let me talk to Maggie and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Reyes.
Yes, Mike, how are you?
Good. Welcome from Snow College.
So good to see you. I've got a story about putting together the Aspire report back in 2004 and driving to Snow College because our printer in the Upward Bound office at UVU shut down. And so I had to go print out all the copies of our Aspire report, our annual report over there at the Snow College printer. So I will always remember that. Mike, good to see you.
Well, we're excited to have you today.
Thank you so much. While we're waiting, and just again, this is, I know sometimes you get odd requests whenever people speak on these things. To the extent that you're comfortable, would love to see your faces. For anybody that's presented on settings like this, it's so much nicer to actually see humans and responses. Again, to the extent that you're comfortable. If you're in your PJs and you're just wanting to not, you're fine. And if for whatever reason you're not comfortable with the turning the camera on so that I can react and see human interaction there, there's a way to load your photo onto your name there. If you go to the 3 dots, if you scroll over your name, and you'll see 3 dots pop up, and you can see it says, I think it says, edit profile photo picture, and like so many have done here, you can upload a photo. So either a photo or video screen, and if neither of those work, that's fine either. I just love to engage with people, and thank you for those that are willing to do that. Also, I'd invite you to open up the chat. As I go through this, there will be 2 occasions where I actually invite your participation on the chat. And so if you can open that up and just be willing, again, it's not mandatory, but willing to participate in some of those exercises, that would be great. Thanks, everybody.
Kyle, we're going to give it about 2 or 3 more minutes. I'm seeing the numbers rise, but
Well, there's the other trio Kyle in the state. That's all I was waiting for.
Woohoo!
Good to see
Go
you.
Piles. Likewise, good to see you.
that's a nice jacket, Dr. Reyes. Where did you get it?
I actually forget. I think it was during one of our retreats.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad we color coordinated this morning. So
yes, for sure.
folks, we're going to get started in about 1 minute.
Kyle, could you state again how to put on a picture? Did you say I
Sure.
should look for 3 dots? I don't see.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not-
if you scroll over your own name or your own screen there,
Oh,
and there's
up
3
there.
dots that should appear in blue, or I don't know if it's the same on every person's, but and then you click on those 3 dots, you should have the option there where it says edit profile picture. Does it not show up for you there?
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm on a Mac. Sometimes
Gotcha.
programs don't like me.
Hey, you know what? You're just fine. Thanks for trying. And
Well,
we're-
oh, come on, not your request, even though I'm kind of still in my pajamas.
hey, I was tempted to wear jeans today, but I've got to go speak at something in person later. So otherwise I would have been in jeans and a sweater.
All right, let's get started this morning. Welcome, happy Friday, Utah Aspire. We are glad to have you with us this morning for our opening keynote speaker. In the interest of full disclosure, Kyle may be a little nervous about my introduction of him, but also may actually be secretly loving it too, because he loves it when I'm put in a position to have to say nice things about him publicly. So that's for those of you, some of you do know Kyle Reyes, Vice President of Student Affairs at UVU. Others of you, he may be a new face to you too. So I'm going to just give you a little background on Kyle and why he's here and why we wanted to invite him. So Kyle got his start in higher education in Gear Up and TRIO programs a long time ago. He was the assessment coordinator for Upward Bound and Talent Search. Was one of his first real permanent full-time jobs in higher education. From there, he went to be an outreach advisor for Gear Up. He was then the director of the Latino Initiative at UVU, the first director of UVU's Latino Initiative. He was the director of first-year experience and student retention for a period of time, and then he was tapped to be the chief of staff to former President Matt Holland at UVU. During his tenure there, he served in a variety of roles, one of which was he's associate professor in the School of Education at UVU. He also served as UVU's first senior inclusion and diversity officer for our institution, and now serves as the vice president of student affairs. And that was his resume portion. This is the hard part for me to talk about now in terms of this, because, you know, one of the reasons I wanted Kyle to be here is because we talk a lot in Trio about having a Trio heart, and he certainly does have that in combination with a lot of other amazing qualities. And it's really kind of he's very kind, he's very thoughtful, and he's wicked smart. And it's really a lot for me to have to say that publicly in a way. And so one of my roles that I've taken on is just trying to keep his ego in check a little bit most times, fully endorsed by his sister Noreen, who does that at home for him as well. But seriously, folks, the thing I admire most about Kyle professionally is that he has never lost sight of where he started in his career and the students he served at the beginning of his career. Kyle, whenever you have a conversation at UVU with Kyle about how best to generate student success, he starts from a place of making sure that the conversation starts with our underserved and underrepresented communities at UVU, including first generation, low income, students of color, students with disabilities, LGBTQIA students. He doesn't finish the conversation there. He doesn't add it on at the end. He starts in that place. And for me and in the work I know you all do, and for me in the work we're trying to do at UVU, that is a real gift in terms of a senior student affairs officer at our institution. So yeah, I turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Dr. Kyle Reyes.
Barney, thank you. I want to respond to that, but I want to move on with the presentation. And I'll just say this: it is an absolute honor to be with you today. When Barney invited me to participate, I knew that President Tumínez was going to participate, and so I thought, okay, they're covered, they're good, and it's going to be outstanding. And from what I've heard from even a few of you, that President Tumínez offered a great presentation yesterday. So thanks a lot for having me follow that, Barney.
You're welcome.
But when he invited me, I thought to myself, yes, I mean, anytime I'm happy to speak to the Trio family, because for me, it's reconnecting with, as Barney mentioned, with my roots. What I'd love to do today is in 3 parts. Let me share my screen, and you'll see that today is all about storytelling. And I'll tell you a little bit about why storytelling for me. Oh, and by the way, if somebody can give me access, Barney, to share my screen, I think, let me see. Oh, I can do it now. So thank you. So hopefully you can all see that. And let me kick into presentation mode. And can I just get a head nod from a few? Can you see that?
It's there, Kyle.
Okay, excellent. Thanks. So I want to talk about storytelling in 3 ways. One is the power of storytelling, period, and why stories matter in the work that we all do. And when I say the work that we all do, I think we champion other humans. And I don't want to be that simplistic, but I also want to be that simplistic. At the end of the day, I remember when Barney and I first connected, and we've kind of joked about it over the years. And as the years have accumulated, so what is it that you do? Oh, I change people's lives. I'm a game changer for students. I'm a champion of students. I love that Trio literally had, I don't even know if the award still exists, but it's the Trio Champion Award. I love the term of champion, and that we get to be not just educators, we get to be advocates, allies, champions of other human beings, of folks who may not have had those champions. And there is something about the power of stories that connects why and how we do the work we do, and having it actually land in our jobs and throughout sort of our careers and our lives. So I want to talk about the power of stories. Then I want to talk about the power of counter stories and why we need more counter stories in all aspects of our lives, and why we need to invite in counter stories, and why by telling the stories of our students, not just to legislators, right, at policy council every year, but throughout our campuses, the power of telling our student stories as counter stories to what people perceive to be the traditional norms of a higher education experience. And then where I'd like to finish is actually what some people think is probably the more boring part of the presentation, but I find it the most fascinating. And that's actually a bit of a trip down history lane about the history of TRIO. And the reason why I get so nerdy about this is because it's really hard for us, and especially perhaps anybody that's on this call that might have been in the TRIO family now for 5 years or less. And you're like, okay, I love it. I know what I do, but do I really know how and why this all even started? And so I'm going to share an excerpt from Lyndon Johnson's speech from 1965 at the start of TRIO. And so that's the journey that we're going to go on today. Power of stories, power of counter stories, positioning the story of TRIO, and then I'll finish. I'll wrap it up. My story. If you've heard my story before, which I think at least 5 or 6 of you have, you know that there's various parts of my story that I like to share that have been pivotal in my life, but I'll share one in particular today. In the 10th grade, I went to Canoga Park High School in the San Fernando Valley in Canoga Park, Woodland Hills area. I self-identify as Native Hawaiian, Filipino, and Japanese. My mom from the Big Island of Hawaii, she's Hawaiian Japanese. My father from the Philippines. My father an artist, my mother an educator. I'm the youngest of 3 children. In the 10th grade at Canoga Park High School, I had already built a narrative in my mind that I wasn't the smart Reyes. My brother and sister were both valedictorians of Canoga Park High School. By the time I entered 9th grade at Canoga, my sister had already graduated, so I basically was home alone with mom and dad and navigating all of Canoga Park High School from the 9th grade on. My GPA was not strong. I was not first generation. My mom was an educator and got a bachelor's and a master's, and my dad received a bachelor's in the Philippines. I was not what we would consider to be even at the time low income or on the low socioeconomic status, and yet there was something about the narrative that I had developed about my intelligence or lack of at the time, my perception of my ability to test, doing time tests, and my grades that just were not reflecting, again, my brother and sister's sort of benchmarks, if you will. In the 10th grade, I got really involved in graffiti work and street art. And I don't want to have these like stories. Barney knows I never pretend to be from any sort of, life that was involved in gangs or anything like that. I definitely wasn't involved in anything that was that I could possibly, run into law enforcement every day. But I was definitely into the art side of graffiti work and found my niche in these sort of secret spaces in our community and in our school and on desks in the classrooms and whatnot. And so just in the 10th grade, the quick story is that I was sitting there in class one day and had my textbook on top of my sketchbook. And every time the teacher would turn around, I would I would draw on the sketchbook. And every time she would turn back towards the class, I would cover the sketchbook with my textbook and pretend like I was engaged. She left the class for a brief moment. I thought I had significant amount of time because I knew my teacher's behaviors. She left. I started drawing. Next thing I know, I sensed her presence. She had come in the back door and she was just standing over my right shoulder. I noticed that my friends were looking at me. I could sense this sort of the heat of authority behind my right shoulder. I put my hands up. I dropped my Sharpie marker. And I knew what was coming. She was going to tell me to give her the sketchbook, to give her the marker, to go to see the principal or go to detention. I knew the narrative because I had experienced it so many times. Instead, she said, "Can you put that away and come see me after class?" And I thought, and of course, my friends who knew me as a class clown, they were like, "Ooh." And I saw her after class and she said, "You are really talented." She goes, "How long have you been doing this?" And I thought to myself, but let me back up. But before she said, "See me after class," when she was looking at my artwork, she said, "How long have you been doing this?" I said, "Well, however long you've been gone, a few minutes." She goes, "No, how long have you been doing artwork?" And again, let me just jump right to the punchline there, folks. I had not heard an authority figure outside of my father who had called the type of work that I was doing art. I had never heard that. I said, I've been drawing my whole life. She said, and that's when she said, put it away, come see me after class. Well, after class, she said, I think you need to take an AP Studio Art class next year in your junior year. I had not taken an honors or AP class up to that point. I wasn't planning on it. Remember my GPA below 2.0. And so in my junior year, I took an AP Studio Art class, and it entirely changed the trajectory of my life because I realized what art could do to tell a story. And till this day, I still tell stories with my art. I happen to find new mediums to do that and new venues to do that, but I still do that. I'm going to pause my story there. And here's where I'm going to go out of, I'm going to stop sharing for just a sec. Oh, actually, I'm just going to go out of sharing mode there for just a second. And you can still see this screen, I know, but I'm going to go to the chat here, and I'm going to invite you to open up the chat. And here's what I'd like you to do. So I'd like to understand why you're all champions of other humans. I want to understand why you care so much about students. And so if you wouldn't mind, in I don't know if it's so for me, what I might write in the chat is 10th grade Sharpie marker. Okay. But in the chat, will you put down in 5 to 7 words, right? Not too long, but put in the words that answers one of these questions. Why are you in the field of education? Who helped you get to where you are? Where are your mentors? When your career is over, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, is there a memory? Is there a pivotal moment in your career when it changed the trajectory of everything? And can you capture that in 5 to 7 words? Is it a name of somebody? Is it a year? Is it a class you took? Is it a song? But if you wouldn't mind, I would love to see those in the chat. So with that, let me just see if I can see the chat. And we're going to just take a few minutes and have you thank you for starting to, I love that the first 2 were Mariah Weingarten, because that's actually how I'm going to end my presentation today. But keep it coming, folks. Just keep it coming. How did you get involved in this career that we all love, right? How do we become a part of the Trio family? And so again, think of a person, place, moment that reflects why you became an educator. That answers these questions right here. All right. And here's what I'm going to do. This is the randomness of the virtual environment of this activity. I see that there's, as they're coming in, I see a number of these, and I'm going to choose a number between roughly 1 and 25, and we'll just count down on the number of chat there and see who said what. Now, here's what I'll ask. If I call your name and you mentioned somebody in the chat, or you mentioned an experience in the chat, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to just unmute yourself and share that brief story with us in about 90 seconds or so. Share that story that's tied to that memory. If you don't want to participate, then just don't participate. Don't unmute yourself and just let the 5 seconds drag out, and we'll go on to the next one. But I really hope, folks, in the spirit of us just getting to know a few stories, we're not going to go through everybody's, but in the spirit of us getting to know a few stories, I hope that you'll unmute yourself for that. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I can see more faces. And here I go. The random number from my number generator here on my laptop is, the first number is 9. So if you were the 9th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Terry Winder. Terry Winder, would you be willing to share? And if, again, I hope everybody knows it's unauthentic. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to.
I may have been a little facetious when I said that God played the biggest part in my life, but I think everyone here would be willing to say that they feel like what they're doing is a calling.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. I'm going to choose number 17. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Sarah Golding, SSS. My father pushing me to go to college as a single mother. Sarah, would you be willing to share that story?
Sure. Yeah, I was a single mother. I was 20, about 21 years old, and I had just a little boy and a dead end job. And he basically forced me, which is the best thing that really has ever happened. He walked me over to Snow College, where I currently work. And helped me apply for financial aid. If it wasn't for that and for him pushing me, I wouldn't be here today helping students.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. My next number here, let's see, 29, Salvador Ceja Monroy. Would you be willing to share?
Yeah, so both of my parents are immigrants, and so I'm first gen. So I was the first in my household to graduate from high school, and I'll graduate college this month, and so I'll be the first. And so I was in trio from 8th through like 12th, and so like my parents didn't know anything about FAFSA and stuff, and then through that thing, and the program helped a lot. But now I want to sort of work to that as a student who went through it, and also to sort of help the students in the areas where I saw that, either the school or that didn't see, because like I'm going to share that both of my parents were undocumented, but now they have the residency. And it's just like help those students who were in my place that like their parents weren't sure if they wanted to give that info to the school and then just give back. But yeah.
Yeah. Salvador, thank you. And congratulations, by the way. I hope you saw some of the applause there for you graduating. That's so exciting. Number 3, Janet Walker, tapped by colleague who saw something in me that I didn't. Would you be willing to share, Janet?
Yeah, I was in the purchasing department at DSU, and someone befriended me from the SSS department, and we kind of became friends. And she said, I think you would be a great advisor. And talking with her supervisor, Jonathan, you all know him.
Yeah.
And they both kind of took a chance on me and saw something in me that I didn't. And I now wonder, as a first generation, low income college student who wasn't in trio, I wonder if some of that insecurity it was based in that kind of background and experience. Because anytime I've been offered a job just out of the blue, or not offered a job, but kind of tapped in that way, I've always been surprised. like me, really? So I'm thankful for that.
Awesome. I love that. And I don't think you're alone in that, by the way, Janet. Sam, Dr. McGowan telling me, quote, "You suck."
Yeah, when I was an undergrad, I had an experience in the teaching program where I had videotaped myself teaching and brought it in and was sort of joking around about the kid in front of me, not knowing what he was doing. And my professor just looked at my video and she said, "Well, that's funny coming from you because you absolutely sucked on your video." And it was sort of a humbling experience. And she said, if you want to reach kids, you have to be yourself, and you really have to just not go in and act like a teacher, but you have to go in and act like yourself and teach. And that was something that really opened my eyes. It was probably one of the biggest turning points in my professional career. I've had a few, but that's probably the biggest one right at the beginning.
Yeah. Sam, thanks for sharing that. It did catch my attention. And not only was it number 16, but the moment I landed on it, I thought there's definitely a story here. Folks, just in the matter of time, by the way, just glance at the chat. How many of you are curious about everybody else's like stories at this point? You're like, I want to know that one. I loved reading through and actually seeing names of people that I know. I know Amy Bergerson. She was my doctoral chair at the University of Utah. I know Mariah Weingarten, right? I think, Janet, were you referring, when you said everybody knows Jonathan, were you talking about Jonathan Morell? Yeah, right. I mean, talk about the legends, right? I mean, these are folks and names of folks that I really do consider part of my professional family. Friendly, who put in the chat there, folks at Provo High. I wasn't Friendly's advisor, but I was the advisor for Friendly's brothers. And so that connection, it's so good to see. I hope we don't lose track that at some other point, perhaps, maybe there's space to share some more of these stories. But I think the power of it still shows through. And I'm going to share my screen again because I'm going to move on. I talked about the power of story, and now I'd like to pivot as you know, to start to talk to us about, or talked about, why stories matter in the context of of framing counter stories and why counter stories matter. So many of you are familiar with Chimamanda Adichie's groundbreaking TED Talk. Chimamanda Adichie, world-renowned poet and short story writer, who now has 6-7 books that you can pick up on Amazon. And I am not Chimamanda's agent, by the way, but you can. It's definitely worth a read. She is such a beautiful poet and beautiful short story writer. And her TED Talk is one of the most watched in history. Danger of a Single Story. If you haven't watched it, please do. I don't want to steal the thunder of the 19-minute TED Talk, but basically the essence of and the thesis of Chimamanda's words in that TED Talk is, in the absence of exposure to diversity, in the absence of exposure to different perspectives, lenses, histories, narratives, languages, our brain defaults to a single story of the other, because our only portal to the other is how somebody else has framed the other for us. Without engagement with, without exposure to, conversations with, friendships with people and experiences that are different than our own, our brains, because of how our brains are hardwired, default to a single story about identity X or person's experience Y or group B, right? And so she talks about overcoming the single story, and she talks about just immersing yourself in that diversity. And this fabulous quote that I unpack with my students in the School of Education: we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. Our lenses, our biases, the baggage we bring, we all see through the lenses of our experiences and through how we've framed the world based on the stories that we've allowed to take hold and to create truths in our mind about what's normal or what is right and what's supposed to happen in society. And what's really fascinating is everybody on this call can observe the exact same incident, right? But because of our lenses and backgrounds, we will take away different things from the same incident. Just think of a movie and just how many of us loved or hated the exact same movie, right? Because of our experiences and the lenses we bring to that experience. The other part of the danger of the single story and how our brains work that Chimamanda spoke to is this idea that our brains are filled with these card catalogs of information. The information has been put there of collecting data over our lifetimes. From the time we were very little, we were gathering information about where we feel safe, where we belong, where, as soon as I started taking time tests in the 3rd grade, I collected cards in my mental box around tests that said, I hate tests. I hate tests. I hate time tests. If you're going to time test me, I'm going to turn the Scantron into a bubble design, because I'd rather draw on this bubble Scantron than actually take the test that's going to prove I'm stupid. I hate this. My card catalog box of testing, folks, was filled with cards of experiences that I am not good at tests. And it also had other boxes of my favorite foods and other boxes of, oh, my sister, she was mean to me today, but she was nice to me today. And Barney knows my sister well. So Barney, you don't have to text her right now that I'm talking about her, but we all collect these data points in our boxes. Here's the scary part of this, though, folks, is that so many of the cards that enter into our neural boxes have been placed there by other people. It's been placed there by the literature that has been introduced in throughout society in terms of what we are taught K through 12. It's been placed there in sound bites on tweets. It's been placed there by other people just talking about, difference. And what's interesting is, even if we don't believe something, because other folks have planted ideas in our brains about that it could be a reality, over time, if we allow ourselves and we don't check those boxes, if we don't check our lenses, we become folks who believe the single story of other people because we haven't taken the time to put our own cards in there through our own deliberate experiences. And the way that we do that, right, is this healthy dissonance. We need to this is not just simply getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. This is saying, if I'm going to be a champion of my students, if I'm going to be a champion of other human beings and their development in any sort of way, I have to recognize the complexity and the diversity that is the human experience. And if I'm going to authentically champion diverse student experiences and their narratives and languages and backgrounds, then I need to step into some healthy dissonance and not shy away from the conversations to learn. Because I've found that those that want to disengage, again, that's where the progress stops for our learning and development. It's through the engagement, usually through dialogue, and usually through questions of genuine curiosity, that we begin to, move towards understanding and progress. So why then the importance of engaging with counter stories? The importance of engaging with counter stories has to do with our ability to say, and I'm going to now position this as, you become an ambassador of the student, whether it's in the school that you're embedded in, right? So when I was an Upward Bound advisor, I was at Independence High School, Provo High School, and Orem High School. And when I was an ETS assessment coordinator for Talent Search, I traveled to about 15 schools, the furthest being Manila in Daggett County. And I would drive 4 hours through Evanston, Wyoming, and come back down to Daggett County, do my workshop, and then drive 4 hours back. Or I'd go through Flaming Gorge, right through the Uinta area. And I remember once I learned my students' stories, I was like, other people need to know these. Like, am I the only one that's privileged enough to know? Like, and then once we started to engage on campus in a more meaningful way in terms of some of the committee work and some of the other things, and inviting campus administrators to come learn what we were doing, I still remember those that are familiar with the UVU Trio house, the old one. They just moved into a new house, but the Trio pre-college house, I should say, with Upward Bound and Talent Search. It was a house, and you might remember that many of the offices were down in the basement. And Michael and Kasha and B, if you're all smiling right now, as I can't see you, but go on this journey with me. My first office was down in the corner of that conference room. And I still remember the Vice President of Student Affairs, Corey Duckworth, the Associate Vice President for Outreach and Access, Michelle Taylor, and sort of the Senior Director of the area, Shad Sorensen, who's like 6'6", and had to duck to come into that basement space. I remember them coming down and visiting. I had been on the job for a year. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know who these folks are. And Mariah turned to us and he's like, oh, here's our leaders, our campus leaders. Let's tell them what we're all involved in. And I just remember going off on like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're changing lives, all this stuff. And I remember Corey and Michelle in particular, I remember being like, just thanking us for what we did, and Shad thanking us. But I remember distinctly, like, how do they not know these stories? Like, do we meet with them every week now just to tell them those stories? Like, how do they not know these stories? And so it's really fun now when I get the Upward Bound newsletter as the Vice President of Student Affairs here at UVU 18 years later, and I get the Upward Bound newsletter, and I'm like, yes, these are the stories. These are the ones that I was telling, right? And what's interesting is, in administration on campuses, and in administration in legislatures, and in administration nationally and locally, the conversation usually is about the masses, right? They're talking about, how do we get more students in higher ed? That's a good question. But here's what's what's been the disconnect for so many years and is still the disconnect at some level. The very people making the decisions about access to higher education for all are not the same people who had to navigate what that might mean for low income and first generation experiences. Meaning the power brokers that have been in the legislature historically, we were seeing, by the way, nationally and locally, we're seeing a lot of change in representation. So that's shifting. But again, typically those at the university level, those at the state level who are making decisions on access do not fully understand the story around access, do not fully grasp and haven't sat with and haven't experienced and breathed the air of what it means to have anxiety about a certain aspect of navigating higher ed. And when they think of the traditional college experience, they're thinking back to their often, not in all cases, but often privileged experiences. And I will say that I sometimes forget because, again, I had, in many ways, a privileged experience. And the importance then of counter stories is to say, we need to not only share this so that other people know what we do, and the campuses and the universities and the colleges and the state can get behind us when it comes time to re-upping for funding, but it's about telling the stories to affect other decisions around access, other decisions around the resources we need to be partners with the Multicultural Student Services Center, LGBT Student Services, the First Gen Center, and other resources on campus to then link, right? Student support services, that linkage between the TRIO family right there, but then SSS to also make those connections to the other departments on campus, like I've seen Keith and Maggie do for a number of years now, right? That it's not just, oh, we're an isolated sort of TRIO office. We are part of the larger conversation on access. Well, to do that, we become ambassadors of the counter story. We become ambassadors and champions of the story that hasn't been told throughout history. So now to transition to that history, I do want to thank Hal Payne of Buffalo State, who helped me in the original sort of presentation here when I presented this in Montana a few years ago, but I've updated it since then. If you're a history buff, you're going to get super nerdy for the next like 10 slides. If you're somebody that gets super bored at history, let me try to reframe this. This is not just history. This is the foundation of the work that we are all engaged in right now. I will read some of these slides just to have you sort of follow the flow, even though I typically don't love to read slides because you can read them there. But again, the appointment of Walter Heller as chairman of CEA, in charge of the council studying the problem of poverty and making recommendations for action. Now, it's interesting here that as you dig deeper into this history, this council was studying the issue of poverty related to education, but also a few other industries. Poverty as it relates to health, poverty as it relates to a few other industries, transportation. So poverty. What was interesting is the educational arm that came out of this. 1963, acting on the recommendation of this person, Walter Heller, who's in charge of it, President Lyndon Johnson declares an unconditional war on poverty. Again, that's not new for many who understand the history of this nation and the declaration of the war on poverty. And he then appoints Sergeant Shriver to head that task force on poverty, transitioning from Walter Heller. And folks, I don't know if you know, we all have assumptions about legislators moving slowly or quickly, but in terms of legislation being produced in less than 6 weeks, to me, that's lightning speed when it comes to like the Congress, when it comes to federal work on that, okay? Economic Opportunity Act. If you've ever attended a national conference or a COE conference, you might have heard of this, the Economic Opportunity Act of 64. Sergeant Shriver is national director. And again, we now see Upward Bound actually named, okay? So again, if you've been working for Upward Bound for the last 2-3 years and you're new to the TRIO family, this is a bit of that history of how this all started within this nation. what I'd like to do now, and what I'm going to need from, and by the way, I'm going to pick on, because I can see, whose faces can I see? I'm going to pick on some folks here. Can you just nod your head if you can hear the video once I play it? So once it starts playing, if you can hear the video, just nod your head. Oh, hold on.
All Americans must have the privileges of citizenship, regardless of race. And they are going to have those privileges of citizenship, regardless of race. But I would like to caution you and remind you that to exercise these privileges takes much more than just legal right. It requires a trained mind and a healthy body. It requires a decent home and the chance to find a job and the opportunity to escape from the clutches of poverty. Of course, people cannot contribute to the nation if they are never taught to read or write. If their bodies are stunted from hunger, if their sickness goes untended, if their life is spent in hopeless poverty, just drawing a welfare check. So we want to open the gates to opportunity. But we're also going to give all our people, black and white, the help that they need to walk through those gates. My first job after college was as a teacher in Cotulla, Texas, in a small Mexican American school. Few of them could speak English, and I couldn't speak much Spanish. My students were poor, and they often came to class without breakfast, hungry. And they knew, even in their youth, the pain of prejudice. They never seemed to know why people disliked them, but they knew it was so, because I saw it in their eyes. I often walked home late in the afternoon after the classes were finished, wishing there was more that I could do. But all I knew was to teach them the little that I knew, hoping that it might help them against the hardships that lay ahead. And somehow you never forget what poverty and hatred can do when you see its scars on the hopeful face of a young child. I never thought then, in 1928, that I would be standing here in 1965. It never even occurred to me in my fondest dreams that I might have the chance to help the sons and daughters of those students and to help people like them all over this country. But now I do have that chance. And I'll let you in on a secret. I mean to use it. And I hope that you will use it with me. But I came down here to ask you to share this task with me and to share it with the people that we both work for. I want this to be the Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike, which did all these things for all these people. Beyond this great chamber, out yonder in 50 states are the people that we serve. Who can tell what deep and unspoken hopes are in their hearts tonight as they sit there and listen? We all can guess from our own lives how difficult they often find their own pursuit of happiness. How many problems each little family has. They look most of all to themselves for their future. But I think that they also look to each of us. Above the pyramid on the Great Seal of the United States, it says in Latin, God has favored our undertaking. God will not favor everything that we do. It is rather our duty to divine His will. But I cannot help believing that He truly understands and that He really favors the undertaking that we begin here tonight.
So I just want to sit in that space for a second, right? And just soak that in. That happened in 1965 from the president's State of the University. Upward Bound begins 17 pilot projects. Okay. Let me move on. Higher Education Act establishes talent search. First time federal scholarship monies would be distributed based on low income status. First time, folks. The work we do today has been made possible by the names that you see in the chat, as well as hundreds and hundreds of advocates that have been part of the TRIO family for these many, many, many decades. TRIO name born when the HEA was amended to include special services, right? So known as SSS. So then that became the original TRIO, the original three, Upward Bound, Talent Search, and SSS. And then continued expansion. Some of you involved in Veterans Upward Bound, EOC, right? 1980s, building permanence. The concept of first generation in college is adopted. And this is nationally, this is in higher education. This becomes, if you study the history of higher education, the literature shows that this is where you're starting to get 1982 or so literature about what do we call this experience when their parents have not gone to college and graduated, right? Concept of prior performance for grants. And then TRIO itself as an actual institution to be reckoned with as a national family, right? COE in 81, cohesive set of programs, McNair, Upward Bound Math Science. So again, just a quick table of the years that each of these centers that all of you work with and support. Okay. And TRIO today. The numbers are probably even bigger. Since this last, I pulled this a couple of years ago. So this is the question I have for all of you as I wrap up. So what? Why do stories matter? Why does it matter that we become ambassadors of our students' stories as counter stories, and especially to those folks who are making decisions? And then why does it matter that we know the TRIO story from its origin? Can I invite one more participation exercise before I give my last story about how and why I joined the TRIO family? Can you in the chat answer the question, so what for you? what is a takeaway that you're going to take away from today? And again, it's not mandatory, but indulge me. Put in the chat, so what? Why does it matter that we know the TRIO history? Why did it matter that to you at all to listen to Lyndon Johnson say what he said? Why does it matter that we become champions of our students' stories? And let's just take a minute and have you just fill up the chat with your so what? I really appreciate what I'm already seeing come in. To me, it's inspiring to have you all recognize, right? This is none of what I've shared today it should be groundbreaking in terms of, oh, it's a game changer. And at the same time, so much of this work is less about game changer stuff. It's more about reminders of what we know. The reminders of what we know is that we are human beings who want to help other human beings find a sense of connection and purpose and educational opportunities. And what are we doing deliberately? Our so what should guide our daily work. What are we doing deliberately to then say, I'm going to show up differently. I'm going to create space for those student stories so that I'm equipped to then go tell them. I'm going to create space to have the students themselves, like so many people. I remember going with Dave Trujillo up to the Capitol. And I remember just sitting there, just watching him talk to legislators and have Dave just rattle off story after story. And I'm like, how does he know every single detail? Well, it's because Dave spent time and years in the trenches and listening and creating space for those stories. And Dave's not the only one, right? All of you, that's what you do on a daily basis. And so what's my sort of so what? I think recommendations for TRIO professionals regarding legislative advocacy. Let's be intentional about gathering and sharing student stories. Convene with other TRIO programs in the state. That's what you're doing here. So what? What is the outcome of this convening? Are you going to lock arms in a way that can really support one another? And I think TRIO does this as good as any organization nationally. And then connect with and invite TRIO alum to share their testimonials and stories of the TRIO's value add. And I will end with this idea of our students' stories are still being written. And whether you like it or not, you're going to show up in their book. You're going to show up in their life story. And I hope one day, as we have this same conversation, and I say to one of your students, why are you working in TRIO? Or you're now the vice president of student affairs, or you're now running your own company, or you're doing this. Can you tell me of a pivotal moment or a person that influenced you? And what's going to show up in that chat at that time are going to be names of folks on this call today. Right? In my story, I was working at Nu Skin as a designer. I felt pretty good about my life. $44,000 a year as a designer. I graduated in graphic design. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work in the industry that you graduated, right? I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see your faces. And I remember sitting in my cubicle on the 4th floor of the Nu Skin building in Provo, Utah, and with the other designers. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is getting kind of boring. I'm just designing for a company that has their look and feel. They don't need my design skills. And I remember calling up a mentor of mine who said, you should go talk to a woman, a Fijian woman over at Utah Valley State College. And I said, okay, I didn't know who she was, but I scheduled an appointment. She actually didn't make it to the first appointment. I went and I sat in the office and she didn't make the appointment. And I said I don't know who I was talking to. It might have even been Kasha at the time. I said to somebody there, I said, can I come back? It might have even been, I'm trying to remember, Desiree Olson. But I just said, can I come back? Sure. Well, we schedule another appointment and I meet the experience that is Mariah Weingarten. And I sit with Mariah in her office that is stacks and stacks of paper, folks. It was organized chaos. She knew where everything was. I was intimidated by just the sheer stacks of paper. And I said, I want a career in education. She said, great, let's talk. And I said, I work at New Skin, but in the evenings I'm available. And she said, well, we have this kind of Provo-based Gear Up program right now. It was the first Gear Up grant. And we're doing the summer program, but we also have these other summer programs going on with our other TRIO programs. And I didn't know what TRIO was. And I worked after New Skin, I would go in the evenings, I would go and hang out with students in the summer programs. And it filled my soul. And another woman that then I will never forget is Nani Kelly, who was working in the office at the time and had actually gone to Mariah and said, I think Kyle's got potential in this field. I'm willing to give up my job. I will quit so that you can have enough funding within the grant to pay for him to have this job. Right? Like, what? Who does that, folks? Nani's husband, Bill Kelly, was my first hula instructor. I didn't even know that story until Mariah offered me the job and said, we need you to be a testing assessment coordinator for all of our programs because we're now going to introduce the Explore and the Plan as part of the ACT portfolio. Okay. And then later I found out what Nani had done, and Mariah found a way to pay Nani still and find a way to keep us both. But in September 4th of 2003, 5 days after I got married to my partner, Michelle, I started at Upward Bound for $23,000 a year, quit my job at New Skin, and have never regretted it for a moment. And spent the next 3 years working on my master's degree and working as an assessment coordinator and later advisor with Upward Bound and being a part of the TRIO family. Folks, my so what is I can't help but tell stories because there have been so many people who have changed my life. Michael Campbell is on this call. He changed my life at a pivotal moment in my life. Ken Sika Cooptua changed my life in a pivotal moment. And I'll close with this, and I'm over time, but I'll close with this. Barney and I, as much as we razz each other, and as much as we hate complimenting each other in public, Barney and I has changed my life. We have had the most meaningful conversations, brother to brother, through tears about how we can do better for our students. And then through tears about how sometimes we kind of want to give up because we keep running into systems. And then we talk ourselves through it, and then we keep showing up. That's a game changer for me, to be surrounded by people who do that. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being a part of the TRIO family. Thank you for being ambassadors and champions of our students' stories. And it's been an absolute honor to be with you today. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for sharing the stories. Kyle was probably talking to me as one of the history geeks as well, because I do love the history part, and I just want to put a bit of a finer point on what that history we just heard about means in terms of Utah. So Kyle mentioned the development of the Council for Opportunity in Education. That was the original meeting that developed that what it is today was held in Park City, Utah, when people came from all over the nation. They slept on Kathy Felker's floor in Salt Lake to have that meeting and form that organization. Kathy was the director of TRIO programs at the University of Utah at the time. The other one I want to mention too, that is just you couldn't have set it up better for this little piece, Kyle. He mentioned in there that the 17 pilot projects of Upward Bound. One of those 17 pilot projects for Upward Bound was the Weber State University Upward Bound. Just so you know, on Wednesday, we elected the director of the Upward Bound program to be the president of the state association. So it's deep here and it's meaningful here. And so with that, thank you, Dr. Reyes. I know I've seen your schedule. He's scheduled, for those of you who don't know, Kyle's scheduled out until at least 2026. But we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight, and you're always welcome to come home.
Barney, can I just say, just because I think Lucy asked for it, let me just say once again how much of an honor. I'm going to step away. Have a wonderful rest of your conference. I will send Barney the entire PowerPoint, and embedded within that is the video, but then I'll also send that link. So I apologize. I do need to click over to the next meeting, but I will get you the information and the entire PowerPoint.
Great.
Thank you, Trio family.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, folks. Let's see here. I'm gonna try and see a little bit more than I'm seeing. Our next speaker this morning is, wow, your name just left my head. Give me 2 seconds to find my cheat sheet. This happened to me yesterday too. It must be, there we go. Stephanie Salvador. Sorry, I apologize. Stephanie, did you make it on the call? Yes, no, maybe so.
I'm admitting her now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back. We're gonna keep moving forward this morning. And again, thank you to Dr. Reyes for his presentation. Our next presentation is from Stephanie Salvador. She is the Director of Congressional Affairs for the Council for Opportunity in Education. She's joining us this morning to give us an update from COE. We were very fortunate in Policy Seminar a couple of weeks ago to have Stephanie join in on one of our calls. For me personally, it was nice to kind of watch a master at work doing that. I'm very much an amateur at that work, and so it was a good lesson for me to watch her navigate those conversations at Policy Seminar a couple, 2 weeks ago? It's all blurring together at this point, folks. So Stephanie, are you here? And do we have your, maybe?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Oh, there you are. Welcome to Utah virtually. And we've had a really good conference so far. And we are always thrilled to hear what COE has cooking. And we're going to try and work that into our statewide strategic plan moving forward. So we are looking forward to your comments this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you all virtually again. I saw many of you, as Barney mentioned, during Policy Seminar, and thank you so much for letting me join some of those Utah meetings. Overall, we had a fantastic event, over 400 congressional meetings scheduled during Policy Seminar. So, hats off to you guys and everyone who helped organize the event and schedule their congressional meetings. It was fantastic to see the high turnout, and we're very pleased, and hopefully it'll lead to greater results down the road in the form of increased TRIO funding, and we'll get more of the legislative priorities that we want. So thank you once again for your participation, to all those who participated in the event. I'm so sad not to be able to be with you all today, but hopefully someday soon in the future we will be. I'll be getting my first COVID vaccine right after this call. So thank you everyone for the invitation, and hopefully we will be out of this mess soon in a couple of months. So as Barney mentioned, my name is Stephanie Salvador. I'm the Director of Congressional Affairs at the Council for Opportunity in Education. And we've put together a legislative update for you all this morning. And I'm going to go ahead and share screen. See if it lets me. All right. Can everybody see my screen, my PowerPoint?
Yep, we can.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to put it on slideshow mode. Okay, great. So you may have heard some of this at policy seminar for those of you who attended, but if you did not, we are in a new administration, the Biden-Harris administration, and with it has come a lot of changes that we are bracing for here at COE. We're going to go into some of these changes, but first, we want to shout out our two amazing TRIO alumni in Congress who participated in policy seminar. The first one was Nakima Williams. She was elected to take John Lewis's House seat in Georgia's 5th district. Excuse me. And then we also have Senator Raphael Warnock, who won during a runoff for the Georgia Senate seat. And he is also a TRIO alum. He participated in Upward Bound at Morehouse College and spoke very highly of TRIO during policy seminar. So we have two new allies and two new friends in Congress. All right, so as I mentioned, we're in a new administration, and before Biden and Harris were elected to office, we lobbied both parties actually, but we were only successful in getting a line and a commitment for TRIO in the Democratic platform. The Democratic platform reads, we will double the maximum Pell Grant award for low-income students and double federal support for TRIO programs that help first-generation college students, students with disabilities, veterans, and other underrepresented groups apply to and complete college. So we've kind of shortened it into a little slogan that we have now on the Hill, and that a lot of you probably heard during policy seminar, which is double Pell, double TRIO. We really want to make sure that as this movement to double Pell takes off in Congress, that TRIO is not left behind, and that elected lawmakers understand that historically the two programs have been linked. Pell on the financial aid side, and then TRIO on the student support services side. They serve the same students. It's just that we have to see the big picture and the wraparound services that go into supporting Pell Grant recipients. And so that's our big legislative ask moving forward. It's what we're probably going to be saying for the rest of the year. And it's really important that we get a down payment on this commitment in the president's budget that's coming up next month. So our job is making sure that Democrats deliver on that promise. $219 million is the down payment for a 5-year commitment to double TRIO. TRIO would not be doubled immediately. It would be doubled over 5 years. So we did the math, and $1 billion is where currently TRIO stands, a little over $1 billion. And then if you divide $1 billion by 5 years, you get about $219 million each year. So our message is that TRIO students, educators, and alumni are requesting a 20% funding increase of $219 million for a total appropriation of $1.3 billion this year. Now you may be asking, where's the money going to go? So the money is going to go towards increasing the number of McNair Upward Bound Math Science and Veterans Upward Bound programs, which are going to be funded in fiscal year 2022. Those are the most immediate ones. This would take effect though in program year 22 to 23. As you remember, the student support services competition, even though we got an increase the year before, was still extremely competitive and extremely tight. So, you know, the more money that we get into these competitions, the more likely that grants are going to be renewed and more people will receive grant funding. It will also go towards funding down the slate for SSS and put more money into the talent search and EOC competitions that'll be coming up in 2 years. It will also give existing projects cost of living increases. So this is the ask. We shared this during policy seminar, but we are asking our people who attended, actually everybody, to follow up with members of Congress to make sure that they understand what we're asking for and to make sure that they actually take the action to go through with it. So these were the 4 questions in the Capitol Hill feedback form, and it asks, will the member of Congress sign the TRIO annual funding letter for fiscal year 22? Will the member of Congress request doubling the maximum Pell Grant and doubling TRIO over the next 5 years? Given the COVID-19 crisis, will the member support a 219 million increase in TRIO in the appropriations database for fiscal year 22? And will the member of Congress include TRIO in their top 5 priorities in the appropriations database for labor, health and human services, and education? Now, the last one is actually the most important one, because if a member says yes to all of these, but then doesn't actually take the action to do the last thing, which is to enter it into their computer, into the database, you know, they're just paying you lip service. So you really kind of want to be a little, not aggressive, but you want to kind of hold their feet to the fire by asking these questions. And it may make some of them a little uncomfortable, but you'll get the response that you're looking for, hopefully. So, you know, remember when you're asking for all of these things from Congress, that this isn't about you. This isn't, oh, so I can get a cost of living increase. This isn't, oh, so, you know, we can have more people funded in the grant competitions. This isn't about you. Try to keep the focus on the students and not on yourselves or your programs, because the students are who you're called to serve, and the students are really why these programs exist. Now, we have come up with an action alert on our website, on the COE advocacy website, that asks everyone to email their members of Congress ASAP. The link, if you just want to type it in, if you don't want to go to the COE website and navigate that complex website, you can just go to tinyurl.com/TRIO-FY22, and that has all of the details of our ask. And it'll only take like 5 minutes max. We also have our policy message for Capitol Hill that you can share with the Hill. And it has our asks and top talking points by program. Also on our COE website, we have TRIO projects by state and district sheet, which has been updated for 2020. And it's updated to reflect the Student Support Services competition results. Also, we have congressional district lookup through GovTrack as well. All right, so this is your congressional delegation. Many of you met with them during policy seminar. I definitely know that I attended the Romney meeting. Great. And this is Chris Stewart. Some of you might live in his district. He sits on the House of Representatives Appropriations Committee, which is a committee that determines funding for all government grant programs. So it's important to try to get him on our side and to see the importance of TRIO funding, because he makes those important decisions. Then authorizers are people who write the laws that govern TRIO programs. So the Higher Education Act, which hasn't been reauthorized in like over 10 years. But nonetheless, Senator Mitt Romney sits on that committee. It's called the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. And then on the House side, you have Burgess Owens, who sits on the House Education and Labor Committee. All right, now switching gears a little bit, I'm going to talk really quickly about the events that our professional development team is putting on. So they are putting on Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science Proposal Writing Workshop. It's going to be May 12th through 13th. And it's free and currently open to COE members. There's a link to register on this PowerPoint, but also you can go to our website, coenet.org, under Proposal Writing Workshops, which should be under events. If you're not a member, please contact Al Phillips and he can assist you with that. We are also hosting an Upward Bound Math Science Innovation and Best Practices Forum from May 4th through the 5th. And it's $400 for COE members and $800 for non-members. More details are on our website. We also have a Veterans Upward Bound Proposal Writing Workshop coming up June 8th through 9th. It's free and open to COE members. And McNair Proposal Writing Workshop, May 10th through 11th, also free and open to members. Additionally, we have a McNair Innovation Best Practices Forum from May 26th through 27th. To register, please visit our website. And I think this is the last professional development slide, but we have No Better Time event coming up. Most of these registrations close at 4 p.m. Eastern, the prior day before the event is scheduled. And the 3 coming up are called 10 Areas of Risk for TRIO Programs and How to Mitigate Them. That's April 13th. The next one is called Growing Justice. It was rescheduled for April 20th. And the last one is Budgets, Coding, and Virtual Programming on April 26th. We also have Connect, Discuss, Learn events. We have pre-college CDLs for Aspire, NEOE, EOA, SWASAP, and AEEE on April 19th. We have the college program CDLEs for NAOP, WestOp, MAOP, KOP, and SAOP April 19th as well. And another college CDLE for the other regions, Aspire, NEOA, EOA, SWASAP, and AEEE on April 20th. And lastly, a pre-college CDLE for NAOP, WestOp, MAOP, KOP, and SAOP on April 20th. Also, our annual conference is coming up, and this is the first, I think, in-person event that we're going to have in like a year and a half. So it will be in person and virtual. You can register online. It will be held in Atlanta, Georgia, and the hotel will open by the end of April 2021. We're excited. Legislation and Regulations also has some upcoming events. For Talent Search Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science on April 14th, for McNair and SSS on April 21st, and EOC and Veterans Upward Bound on April 28th through the 29th. We also have a few other upcoming webinars in our PPD department. One is called Inspire STEM Interest Using Problem-Based Learning. The other one is called Be Prepared, TRIO Services and Emergency Relief from April 1st through 1 p.m. to 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We encourage everyone who's interested to attend. Also wanted to give a plug for Mr. Alvin Phillips, who is obviously not here, but he runs our Fair Share campaign. And COE's board of directors every year sets the annual fair share goal for each state and region. The 2021 goal for fair share is 3.5 million, and that is about half of COE's annual budget. Fair Share is the annual giving campaign between July 1st and June 30th. It's based on institutional membership and personal contributions. Personal contributions are donations made by TRIO professionals and supporters, and institutional membership dues are based on the number of TRIO programs at institutions. We have a little chart right here that Mr. Phillips created that breaks it down based on the number of programs at that institution and how the dues correlate to the number of programs. You can pay membership with grant funds, it appears. Yes. Any questions? Questions for me? Please unmute yourself and let me know if you have a question. For some reason, I can't see the chat box. Stop share. I see it now. Awesome. All right, any questions, anyone? I can also send these slides after the PowerPoint. Send the PowerPoint slides after this meeting.
Stephanie, this is Barney. Thanks for your presentation. We have some we have some seasoned professionals, shall we say, in the audience today, but we also have some new professionals in TRIO.
Okay.
And so since you're director of congressional actions and all of that, can you just provide kind of an advocacy 101 kind of 5 minutes on how do you reach it? How's the appropriate way to reach out to your legislative members? How to structure that and what kind of best practices you may have in terms of not just doing the reach out, but also developing some relationships over time.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. So I, had a little slide that had all of your congressional delegations. So first and foremost, figure out where your congressional district is, and then figure out who your 2 senators are, and come to events or create events for them to attend. I think that's one of the best ways to build relationships. One of those events is obviously Policy Seminar. By participating in Policy Seminar, you will start to build those relationships. But additionally, you can ask them to come and visit your TRIO programs virtually or in person in a couple of months. They will be back home in May. I believe the first week of May is a district work period for them. So that is a great time to reach out to them when they're back home in the district, because they will be looking to make those connections and looking to talk to their constituents during that time. So, if they have a virtual town hall during that week, that's a great thing to attend. If you have a TRIO event like TRIO Day or some sort of celebration, it's a great idea to invite them to that. Also, we will be having a National Student Leadership Congress. And I know obviously that's not for TRIO professionals, that's for the students. But it's a great way for them to get exposure to TRIO programs through the students. So if you have any students that you want to nominate for National Student Leadership Congress, which is coming up in June, that's also a way to get your name out and to put TRIO programs on the congressperson's radar. So please feel free to nominate your students to that. And then lastly, I will say another great way to start building those relationships is by reaching out to them during August recess. So members of Congress go home for the entire month of August, and they usually have plenty of events back in the district, back in the state. This year, some things might start to open up a little bit this August. So there may be room for in-person events, but I'm pretty sure there will also be like virtual town halls. We here at COE put out a packet it's like an advocacy toolkit right around August recess that we will have up on our website, and you can feel free to check it out for more information and more resources and more tips. I see a question in the chat. Kyle Ethelbaugh said, we have our congressional members listed on the website, but can we add something for new folks to see whose district they're in? Yes, you can go to, there's 2 ways to figure out what district you're in. You can go to house.gov. Then at the top of that website, there's a little box that says find your representative, and all you have to do is put your zip code in there, and it'll automatically tell you who your representative is. Or you can go to this website called govtrack.org, I believe it is, or just Google GovTrack, and same thing. You put in your address, your zip code, and it'll tell you who your representative is. So that is the easiest way to confirm.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was actually a question for our state leaders, but I appreciate the insight too.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. Any other questions?
I've got one more, Stephanie.
Yes.
So one of the things we've been working on in our conference this year has been trying to figure out some strategic planning and do some calendaring, stuff like that. And I know you mentioned the August recess, and I know that's a pretty standard recess period. Are there other times where it's more likely for them to be at home in the year? It may not be quite that structured, but yeah.
Yes, there is a congressional schedule. Give me 1 second. I'm going to look it up right now. I just had it in my email. They will be home. I can tell you the most recent one. So they were just back home March 27th through April 4th. So you've got 2 more days left this weekend. Also, they're going to be back in state from May 1st through the 8th.
Okay.
And then they're usually back for the July 4th recess as well. June, they're usually in DC. And then after the July recess, they kind of tend to stay back home for the rest of the month, and then they leave for an entire month in August.
That's helpful, especially, you know, even for summer programming too, to take advantage of that if they're around in the summertime. Thank you for that.
Yes, of course.
I am watching the chat, folks. So if you do have a question you want to put in the chat, I can watch for it as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You guys are an easy crowd. No questions.
Okay. Yeah, let's all see each other in Atlanta. That's now my new goal in life. So that is,
yes, me too.
that is my goal in life. Okay, folks. Please join me in thanking Stephanie for joining us today. And you're welcome to hang out as long as you want, Stephanie. Or go get your COVID shot, because that's really the most important thing of the day. But we do appreciate your time and your willingness to join us virtually. And I hope that next year you can maybe come in person, because yeah, nothing like a trip to Utah in the spring. So thank you so much. And yeah, we appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much. Take care. And I look forward to seeing everyone in September.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye. Folks, we're a Scotia ahead of schedule right now. So we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes, just so everybody can refill their coffee mugs or tea mugs or get their Diet Coke for the day going. And then, so we'll be back at, let's say, 10:35. And then we'll wrap this conference up. Thanks, everyone. Folks, we're going to get started here in the next minute or two. 1 minute warning. All right, just by way of catching up a little bit, and I wanted to just add one thing on to Stephanie's presentation a little bit earlier. I'm going to share my screen really quick. I pulled up a map of Utah's congressional districts so that you all can just kind of see where you are in the districts, just so you know where that is. And if I can just, where else? Share screen right here. Share. The one thing I want to point out with this map, so green section, that's District 1. District 2 is the blue, it's southwestern Utah. District 3 is in yellow, it's southeastern Utah. And then District 4 is kind of just stuck in the middle here as well. So the one other thing I want to note about this too is, you know, they didn't draw these district lines to accommodate our program target areas too. So just keep in mind, you may have programs that are spanning different districts too. And so in your advocacy from your own personal email addresses and personal phones, take a look at the map and see if you have a target area or target schools that may be in a different district than what your institution is too. I know here at UVU, our EOC project crosses over, is in both District 3 and District 4. Our Upward Bound project is in both District 3 and District 1. And so, you know, take a look at the map, and you could just Google this map too. I just wanted to bring it up. And I know it's not the clearest map, but I'm also not the most technologically savvy at making things pretty. So just to kind of give you a general idea of where things are at. And if you do have those boundary things, it may be an extra phone call or two to advocate on behalf of your programs as well. So I just wanted to add that in, and now I'm going to switch over and just kind of remind you where we started on Monday, or not Monday, feels like Monday, but it was really Wednesday. I'm going to go back and find my PowerPoint because I have too many things open and share that. Go. Thank you. As you'll recall from our town hall on Monday, don't want that. We were trying to develop a strategic plan for the state to kind of guide our efforts moving forward. And we were fortunate that those of you that participated in your institutional feedback sessions and those breakout sessions with your institutional feedback groups, the folks that help facilitate those also has been working a bit, well, not just a bit, a good amount behind the scenes since Wednesday to try and assemble the beginnings and the first kind of iteration of a longer term 3 to 5 year strategic plan for the state. And I appreciate their good work on that. So this is where we kind of landed based on the feedback we heard in the town hall session, as well as the way folks shared what they had heard in the institutional breakout group. So just so you know, this is kind of, in terms of putting this together, what we were trying to follow in terms of guiding principles to assemble this. We wanted to put together something that had realistic timelines that recognize first and foremost that all of the members in here do this as an other duties as assigned or a voluntary basis, or it's a side gig, side hustle, however you want to frame that. And so we wanted to be realistic about what that meant in terms of you balancing your own real day job, you know, and which is the most important part of what you do, is making sure that you're successful in, you know, in running your own programs and in doing your own work. So we wanted to set forth some realistic timelines in terms of what we can actually get done, and being respectful of your time and your energy and your multiple commitments. Clarity of expectations too. What do we deliver on the other end of this, you know, kind of on an annual basis in terms of this strategic plan too, and being clear on how do individuals know that, you know, if they're participating in these processes, how do they know when they've done a good job, kind of thing, and how do they know when they're done with their project and they can do more? It's not, but what kind of those expectations are. And the other thing we thought a lot about and talked about too was trying to make sure all the members could find a way into participation. Sometimes I think folks think that the only way to participate is to be, you know, the state president or the secretary or the treasurer, or, you know, on the conference committee. There are so many ways for folks to participate, large and small, and every role in TRIO in Utah can participate in this in one way or another. So we tried to keep all of that in mind as we were assembling that. We want this to be ambitious and attainable. I know you've heard those words before, but we also want it to be workable too. We want this to be successful in some ways, and we want you to be, as the members, to be able to find your way into this too, if you're so inclined. So those were kind of the guiding principles that went into this, based on what we heard in the town hall and in the institutional breakouts. About 5 themes emerged. A theme of communication was one, and that is kind of framed around, what are we saying about TRIO, our TRIO students, our TRIO programs? What are we saying about them to others? The second one is networking. And so as we're communicating, networking is another part of that, is, and if you think of it in a room, who's in the room with us in TRIO programs? Who are our partners in the community? Who are our schools and our districts? Who are our institutional partners? Who's in the rooms with us for networking, and making sure that the right people are in the room, and that if they're not in the room, that we find a way to get them there. The third thing that came up was alumni, and this is probably, I'm guilty of this, you know, as an alum of TRIO programs too. It's something that has been difficult to find traction with, so to speak, too. And I probably, you know, I'll own my share of not doing my piece in terms of being an effective alumni advocate. But I think there are ways to make sure that we are keeping track of our alumni and know who our alumni are, but are also finding ways to do a bit of what Kyle was talking about this morning. Our best storytellers are our students and our alumni in some ways too. And you know, making sure we always have the opportunity to have their voices at the table, because they can tell their stories better than any of us can as well. And that's a really meaningful thing, not just for legislators, but for our partners in the community and others. The fourth thing was metrics and research, and just getting our heads around not only who we're serving, where we're serving, and those are things we need to get our heads around, and how much money we're spending, but also answering that so what question. Answering questions about what our impact is, and trying to consistently do that as a state. And that's, you know, this is the place where in my, you know, you heard Kyle talking about geeking out over the history. I do that too. I'm also can be a bit of a data geek too. So data geeks unite in Utah Aspire to try and and cobble together those numbers, because I know there's some good numbers folks out there, and have that good analytical ability to figure out how to translate numbers into stories, and how to reinforce the stories we're trying to tell with some data and some numbers and some theory and some research behind our best practices, and why we do what we do. And just as an aside, because I just went back to history, and just as a reminder too, to kind of keep one other observation I made during Kyle's history lesson with TRIO and Aspire, is that he mentioned the first generation being defined essentially in federal law and federal policy back in about 1981. That definition drew on the work of Fuji Adachi, who was director of TRIO programs at the University of Wyoming. So Aspire has deep roots in this work that go way back. If you go and do a literature review on first gen, you will see published papers from Fuji Adachi in the early 80s talking about defining what a first generation student is. Finally, in terms of professional development, and this is a two-way street. I think one of the things that came out was making sure that when we offer conferences and workshops and activities, that it is meaningful for the participants, and we all have something to learn, in these spaces, and trying to make sure we know what the membership of the state is looking for in terms of what to offer. But the other flip side of that too is there are so many experts in our state that can also provide that professional development. There are people who, I'm going to pick on Janet Walker a little bit, because she talked about her past life in accounts payable. There are great skills in budget management that she knows, that she carries with her in her role, that could be very useful to people in the state. So Janet, I'm expecting a financial one at some point in the future, but that's an example. Like, we are all carrying these skill sets from different points in our career that we can all leverage in some way, so that we're all better off for it, and allow us to bring our own strengths, our own skills, and what we've developed over our careers to bear and help others in pursuit of the state. So those were the broad themes that we kind of heard and we discussed as a group and landed on. And so from these main themes, we've kind of tried to map out the next. The overall strategic plan is looking to be about 5 years out, but we were able to get into the first couple of years a little bit. And so I'm just going to present where our thinking is at this point. I want you to know at this point, this is a draft version. It is editable. It's not like the final say in anything. And we welcome input, today, tomorrow, and forever in the future in terms of this. But this is kind of where we landed. In terms of communications, kind of 3 objectives or guiding principles. I didn't really know what we should call it, but we'll call them objectives, because we're used to talking about objectives in TRIO anyways. So an objective to develop consistent and cohesive messaging for all TRIO programs in the state. Understanding and leveraging timing regarding messaging. That's one of the reasons I asked the question of Stephanie about kind of when are legislators home. Those are things we need to think about in terms of, well, here's a moment we need to leverage in order to deliver some messaging while legislators are at home, for example. And then clarifying expectations and roles regarding communication for all members, meaning that, sometimes it could be in some way, and I'll jump to the next piece. If we look at 2021 and 2022, this is kind of the foundational work that we're looking at trying to roll out beginning this October at the regional conference to follow for a year after that. But establishing a task force or identifying a committee, and that's some of the work we're going to do this summer on this, that can handle communications essentially, and figure out who's going to tell who, and making sure that if there's an institutional representative from each institution that will handle getting the word out at our institutions or in regions or something like that in the state. And that speaks to that clarification of expectations and role. Creating a communication calendar and timeline. When are our events? Understanding when we have, like, for example, when annual performance reports are due, and it's probably not the best idea for us to try and launch a communication campaign in November and December, because we're all kind of swamped with that. What are we already doing? What kind of programming are we already offering? And then a collaboration with the networking and metrics and the research task forces to put together the TRIO fact book. So, you know, as we talked about the TRIO fact book, there's a communication element to that, there is a networking element to that, and there's a research element to that as well. So that's what we're looking at for 21, 22, and essentially just to frame out the rest of the discussion and the rest of the presentation and what this looks like is, you know, if you are a communication guru and that is your gig, that, you know, we would welcome your input, and part of what the expectation for this coming year would be those three things: establish a task force, create a calendar and a timeline, and then collaborate with a couple of other committees to formulate something together. If you look on, you can look at 22, 23, we kind of built that out a little bit more in terms of rolling out and deepening the exercise of the foundational work. In terms of networking, the objectives here are to map our impact in Utah, which is where are our programs, where are our target schools, where are our target regions, right? Where are we? And so that we can tell that story, but also mapping our influence in Utah. So not just where we're at, but who we are connected with. Are we connected with the United Way? Are we connected with Big Brothers Big Sisters? How are we connected with school district entities? Do we have connections at the State Office of Education? All of those things to map our influence. So, you know, Kyle Ethbal may have a great connections with, and I'm just making stuff up, Kyle, but with the Salt Lake City School District and Salt Lake City School Board through Upward Bound. That's mapping our influence, because then Kyle can carry messaging regarding TRIO to that organization. And we all have those connections, and it would be useful if we all kind of knew also to leverage them, because if we're working with organizations that have multiple, you know, I don't know, arms or multiple outreach spaces like the United Way or something, we may be able to leverage that into a larger discussion that would benefit multiple areas and our students in multiple areas in the state. And that's that last point, is to leverage those efforts with multiple related stakeholders in Utah. And so for 21, 22, forming maybe a networking task force, or finding a committee where that already exists, where this could be housed, collect and consolidate institutional and community partners lists from each project. I know you all have it. It's section 4 or 5, I think it's section 5 of your grant proposals. You know, even if we just had that information from all of us to know where we're overlapping, it would be really meaningful to map that influence, and then identify where the gaps are. Maybe we don't, maybe we need to be more integrated into K-12 school boards throughout the state, and we don't have a strong connection there. And that will help us understand where we're at, so then we can figure out what our gaps are. In terms of alumni, the objectives that we kind of came up with as a working group were establish an effective alumni association. And like I say, I don't kid myself on this task. I don't think it's horribly hard, but some focused energy would be useful. And this does two things. It both helps us with the storytelling and the counter storytelling Kyle talked about this morning, in terms of messaging about the experiences of low-income and first-generation students in the state. But it also may help all of us to keep track of our alumni, especially for programs who have to track their 6-year graduation rates. That could be a really meaningful thing that could come out of an alumni association. Well, that may not be perfect, may be clunky at first, but we're all clunky at first, and then we just get seasoned and refined with age. And then, like I say, to amplify TRIO alumni voices, because one of the things that we heard about this morning is sometimes it's helpful to have others tap us on the shoulder and say, no, your message is important, your story is important, and people need to hear that too. And that could be really meaningful for both our students and our alumni. So essentially we have an alumni committee. So this would probably become kind of the role of the alumni committee in the state, but identify current TRIO alumni groups. Kyle mentioned one at the University of Utah. That's an example of a group. Maybe some other institutions have that at their institution in one way or another. And then kind of figure out what Aspire's trying to do with alumni and what COE is trying to do with it, because everybody's trying to move in a similar direction. So figuring out what those intersections look like in Utah, just by, reaching out to those two organizations to figure out, where they're trying to take alumni program. And then just doing kind of I do this a fair amount in my job, just, doing some good old seat time in front of Google to find out what's working where, and are there good alumni associations that are highly functional, and then, reaching out for them to see what their best practices are in terms of replicating something in Utah. Data geeks unite. I love me some data geeks. They're going to inherit the earth, and they keep us all on track in some ways. And so in terms of metric and research, this is, again, understanding the impact of our programs in the state numerically in some ways, but also linking that with theory and practice that backs up what we're doing in our programs that is successful. For all of you that are having successful experiences in your programs, there is good student persistence, student recruiting, student outreach, and student retention theory guiding that. And having a place where we can all access those research resources to, I don't know, write a logic model from once every 5 years or so that we have kind of a research-based approach to that. Might be useful as well. But part of in my experience, part of what also helps at my institution is, student affairs gets the hard work of this. But when I want to partner with folks in academic affairs and faculty, they want the theory behind that. And so for me to be able to say, no, we're linking this to peer research things, helps me gain traction and getting credibility in my own institution as well. And I think that may be true at some of your other institutions. And then finally, in terms of professional developments, and as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a give and take. We want to focus on a strengths-based approach to developing leadership. And that's why I just picked on Janet a few minutes ago, because I'm assuming she has a strength in terms of finance, in terms of budgeting, and bringing that to bear for the rest of us could be really meaningful. We want to have a membership-focused deployment of professional development, meaning we want to ask the members what they want to hear, where they feel their gaps are, what they need to learn about for this conference and for other activities we host throughout the year. And then we, again, like I say, and we want to find our experts in our community as well. And then a consistent focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. One thing that I may not have been explicitly present, but was kind of present in both of our keynotes, was the intersectionality of identities in terms of people's journey. And that's a reality for so many of us and for so many of our students. And there are ways in which our identities are privileged and ways in which they are marginalized. And that depends sometimes on the literal chair and the literal room that you're sitting in, whether that is occurring for you or not occurring for you. And so, and we need to be mindful of that for ourselves, for the organization, and for our students as well. And so one of the things that you should look for in the coming weeks, sometime between now and October, depending on how quickly we can, but we want to put together an annual survey in conjunction perhaps with, we want to put together a survey that essentially is going to ask the membership, what do you want in terms of training, and what do you want in terms of those kinds of things, A, and B, being realistic about what you're able to offer, and asking you to stretch a little bit. It is a great professional development kind of thing. It's a great resume builder for people to present at conferences. And I will tell you that I got my start presenting at Utah Aspire conferences when I was 22 years old, and I didn't want to say boo to anybody when I was 22 years old. So if I can do it, you can do it too. But we want to also, ask annually, what are people looking for in terms of trainings? What kind of professional development experiences we can offer, and then try and match that to what our state can bring. And if it can't, that will give us an idea of, do we need to bring somebody in from outside? What kind of guest speakers do we need to invite to participate as well? And then to integrate the strategic plan goals into the state conference in some way or another. And I don't know what that looks like, and none of us do. Again, this is all draft at this point, but we just wanted to kind of walk through and just give you a 30,000 foot view in terms of of where we're thinking right now. Again, we got through kind of the first couple of years. Some folks, the Aspire board or the Utah Aspire board and others will probably be working on this in the coming months between now and October to flesh that out a little bit. We welcome suggestions, ideas, contributions, and this is where I'm going to throw it out there too. If any of you saw something in what has come up so far where you would like to participate, you would like to serve on a committee or serve in a role, or you are a data geek, or you are a communications guru, or you woo is one of your strengths in terms of networking. Those are all, if that's you, we welcome you to put your name and what that is in the chat if you'd like to participate in something beginning in October. It'll give you a little time to think about what that is and to kind of align your reality with what that is. But, you know, even committees of 5 to 10 people in each of these areas doing some focused work for, a limited number of hours over a given year is possible and doable. And that's what we hope to create here. You can also, it's hard when people spring things on folks. You can also email Anthony or Samantha, and they're going to put their emails in the chat. Because maybe you can't commit today, or maybe you don't want to commit today, but it's something that, you may want to noodle on a little bit. And if that's something you're looking to be interested in, starting in October, we would certainly welcome any folks to participate in any of this in this moving forward. So those are our next steps. And now I'm going to stop, or I'm going to just open it up. And I can't currently see the chat. Does anybody have questions? And if you do, shout them out. Concerns, feedback. We're trying to build something for our state. So it's got to matter to you too. So yeah, any thoughts? Questions? Have we made it to Friday afternoon? Friday, is it Friday? Is that?
Barney, we're starting to see some folks. Lisa Livingston said she'd be up for working on a group for pre-college and coordinating with districts like superintendents and principals. Nice. Very well positioned for that as a school board member. I actually chipped in that I'd be keen to start a spatial map of Utah that would represent hopefully to district level, right? Just the whole state. I'll start the project. I'll need a lot of input, but yeah, so those two things. So,
and like I say, I realize, we're putting you on the spot here, and you don't have to feel obligated to, but we will tap you on the shoulder too, eventually, maybe too. So that's reality. Anybody else? Well, I'm glad it's a perfect plan. I mean, that just makes us all feel good. Good. Our work here is done. In terms of, and we're probably going to finish up a little earlier than we anticipated today, which on a Friday, I don't think any of you will feel bad about either. And we still have one more business meeting to go. But I just wanted to, before I turn it over to Anthony to bring it all home, I just wanted a couple of, because I have control of the microphone and the camera right now, just a point of privilege. I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to thank you for your participation in the town hall on Wednesday. I've been in TRIO a long time, and I don't know that I've seen something like that. And so I love that you brought your voices, and I appreciate what Paul and Marilyn Thayer talked about in terms of being outward looking in some ways. And you definitely showed up in that way for that town hall. So I really appreciate that. I want to thank our institutional facilitators who facilitated the institutional dialogues, and then who I grabbed by the collars virtually to join us to help kind of put all of this together and think through all of this. This is a team effort all the way through. And like I say, what's really, really clear to me after the last 3 days is we really do have all the ingredients to be very, very successful. And because we do, our students are going to very much benefit from moving forward for this. I also want to just, like I say, because this is probably my last time on camera, I just want to say thank you to our conference planning committee at UVU. So Michael, B, Kasha, and Paul in Upward Bound, Keith, Maggie, and Camille in SSS, and Tino, even though he's not in TRIO anymore, he did help us try to put together the first conference over this last 2-year saga of trying to actually pull off this conference. All of them did a lot of work behind the scenes to put things together, to get our speakers arranged, to get your swag out to you. And I appreciate their commitment to this endeavor over the last little bit. And UVU was, you know, I'm happy UVU was able to host this year. And then this is, you know, one final thing, and then I'm going to shut up. But you know, I would be remiss, although I have a hard time complimenting Kyle publicly, as I said this morning. Then I do want to acknowledge one thing, and that is that Keith Jensen, who is our SSS director at UVU, is retiring at the end of May. After he has been the first and only director of SSS at UVU since 1996. And in terms of telling a piece of my story too, I was one of the first participants in our SSS program too. And Keith doesn't remember this, and this means something in terms of what we heard from Kyle this morning, that we are doing really meaningful things that we're not even aware of. And I remember sitting down with Keith as about a sophomore at UVSC, and he had me do the Hardiness survey, and we were debriefing the results. And it was and Keith and I have talked about this, and he has no memory of this whatsoever. But I really very much remember how our conversation about self-efficacy and finding internal locuses of control, and knowing that what I was carrying with me from my blue collar, working class, hardworking family was going to serve me very, very well in college. And making that link for me as a sophomore in college was really meaningful. So, point of personal privilege, I just want to thank Keith for his service at SSS for the last however many years it's been since 1996. And with that, I will turn it back to Anthony to bring us all home.
Thank you, Barney. Thank you so much. Thank you, the whole UVU team, for organizing and setting up such a great conference. Barney, I know this idea for the conference has been around not just, you know, in the last moment. It's been around it's been around in your mind, right? Since I remember you talking about it in Chicago, but I believe it had begun its inceptions, like percolating. It's very, very well received, and I think it's a very refreshing boost for strategy and planning. So thank you so much. And thanks to the committee.
And that was good pizza in that meeting too. I would take that deep dish pizza again.
Yeah, it might send me towards another heart appointment, right? It was good. All right, I'm actually gonna bring up I'm gonna share my screen really quickly. Well, if I can find, hold on, I got so many documents open. Maybe I'll bring this up first. Yeah, I'll start with this one. Kyle, are you still acting as parliamentarian to keep me in check as in our team effort? Anyway, I will reconvene, call back our business meeting to order that was in recess from Wednesday. I'll call us back into order. And I'd like to begin with approval of minutes from, if I can find them. Oh, I think it's this. With approval of minutes that from our October conference. These were the ones that I had overlooked sending out until Wednesday morning, so I wanted to give everybody a chance to look through them. If anybody has, so do I need to begin with a vote on this, or can we just begin with, if anybody has any notes, and then vote after? That's what I'd prefer to do. Does anybody have any notes or any comments, anything that was omitted or any errors from the notes from last October who was in attendance at the regional virtual meeting for Utah? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Oh wait, there's something in the chat. Thanks, Jamie. All right then. Jamie says in the chat that if there are no corrections, we can accept the minutes as written. So I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from our Utah business meeting of the 29th, that began the 29th of September, 2020.
This is Barney, so moved.
Thank you, Barney. Second?
This is Keith. I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye or
Aye.
raise the
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries and we accept the minutes from our previous meeting. We'll enter them into our records, into the Aspire records. Now I will continue with the current agenda. I find that. I'll share my screen just to help us all keep track of committee reports, which is where I believe we are. Is this the right? Yeah, this is it. Committee assignments, we updated, revamped those last October, and we'll continue those through the end of this Aspire year. As Samantha takes the reins at the next region, we may be adjusting committees, and we also, as we're looking at this strategic plan that is at its beginning stages, that we have the 30,000 foot view, there may even be some proposed reorganizations that we may look at during that conference to help fit the strategic plan and our efforts so that Aspire Utah is reflecting those efforts. This is now, I've got another report if I can find. If you'll just bear with me, I wasn't finding it. Here it is. Okay. Yep. We'll just, I think, run through the committee reports or updates. The first committee, membership and directory committee, Maggie. First, I want to thank her throughout the year, always having the most updated lists available for messaging when people needed them. Thank you, Maggie, so much for that. Maggie, are you here on the call with us?
I am. And thank you. Yes.
Yeah. What is our current Aspire membership?
We have 62 paid members.
62.
Yes.
So I believe that might be down from prior years a little bit. So thank you, Maggie. Professional development, Tammy, are you here with us? I know SUU is having some connection concerns with internet. Tammy?
Hi, I'm here.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi. Is it my turn? Sorry, everyone was talking to me.
Yeah, if you just want to give, I know it's really at the inception stages, but just a bit of an update on the idea about Trio Ready. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Absolutely. So after visiting with Anthony, sometime before we were right in the middle of grant writing, Anthony and I came up with an idea to move our professional development forward. And after seeing the strategic plan and everything, I think we'll really start moving forward with some better professional development for our Utah, for our state. But we started talking about developing a Trio Ready program of professional development that would happen on a monthly basis. not a basement, a basis, for all paid TRIO or paid Aspire members. So it's all things that we think would be meaningful for people to be TRIO ready and be able to serve in TRIO positions and be strong TRIO advocates. So we're just in the starting stages of that. And I'm just putting together a committee now, and we're just trying to move forward with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Fair share. Jamie, would you like to give us an update?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Can you, Anthony, can you let me share a screen? Is that a possibility?
Yes, you should be able to share.
Okay. Let me try it. Bear with me. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So did this come up? Did my screen come up? Okay. Awesome. So this is as of today. Actually, I got an update from COE regarding institutional fair share and all of that. But first, with Aspire Development, I just want to say, again, Utah made 100% of the Aspire project memberships. So you all paid the $200 for each of your programs, and that goes right to Aspire. So thank you for that. We are, I thought we were actually going to be in second. Montana was doing awesome, and I believe it was South Dakota too. So I think they're just down one program, but thank you again for 100% Utah. Always got to brag about you. And then, oh, don't start. Okay. For COE, we're at 105% right now. So, which is great. These are, move this over here. These are the, oh gosh, hold on. There we go. The institutions and their expiration dates. So it looks like everybody is all on board. We're all caught up. We don't have anybody that's expired, which is awesome. Our first one that's going to be is, looks like University of Utah. So you guys are the ones that have your expiration coming up, but not till July. So we're doing really well with that. And then the donations for the 10 for 10 campaign, we are currently at $420. Right now, our goal is to have 5 people participate, and that means they contribute $100. It's supposed to be like $10 a month over 10 months. You know, you start it clear back in October, or you can just donate a lump sum of 100. And our goal was to have 5. We are, right now we've got 4. So 4 people that have donated. We did unfortunately miss the deadline to meet our goal in order to send Anthony to policy for free. We would have gotten a waiver if we would have met 5. So we didn't do that, but however, we still can reach the overall goal of meeting Utah's fair share amount. We have until June 30th. So if there's anybody that wants to contribute $100, or if that is too steep, which I completely understand, you're welcome to get together with your coworkers and say there's 4 of you that wants to pitch in $25. That can easily be done, and it just has to be put under one person's name, but that can be counted towards the $100 goal for fair share. So we're doing well. We always do. I really appreciate all of your. I love that you let me bug you about project memberships, but also with the COE side of it as well. So, are there any questions? And I don't know how to. Oh boy, unshare my screen. Oh wait.
Roll your mouse up to the top and a menu should pop down that says stop share.
This, okay, I'm gonna move that. Oh, there we go. Awesome, that works. So I'm just gonna look in the chat. Any questions? I know this is kind of confusing with the Aspire Development portion of it and then the COE fair share. So if anybody's a little lost on what goes where and why and who and how, and how much, let me know and I can talk you through that. So you're welcome to do personal donations to both COE and Aspire, but yeah, as long as your project development or project memberships are paid and your institutional memberships are paid to COE, we're doing well, and we always do. So thank you again. And while I'm on here, this development and COE aside, just a reminder, we mentioned Keith was retiring. If there are any other people in your programs that are retiring, let me know so we can be able to recognize those individuals. So I'll probably send out an email as well, but just while I'm here, I thought I would remind everybody. And continue to donate. If you have questions about where that money is going to, or just let me know. I can walk you through it. So any questions? Okay, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Jamie, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the reminder about retirees so that they can be recognized. Thank you. Trio Achiever, Leanne Maxwell, thank you so much. We just saw yesterday we had waited for a second year to recognize 2 years worth of Trio Achievers. Leanne, are you with us?
I am with you. Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I am with you.
Leanne, thank you so much for your for organizing that, your efforts in getting that all put together.
You're so welcome. I hope we have a lot more participation next year. Do I need to say?
Tell us more.
I don't want to tell you more.
Trio Day, Lisa Livingston, are you with us?
I am. No one has made mention of my very funny name.
I noticed you had a different screen name.
Say it, Chaos.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been attempting to be in touch with Brittany Cummings, who was the person that I reached out to have Spencer Cox create a declaration, and they did do it, but I don't have a copy of it. And I checked with Tammy and it hasn't come to the office. However, that Trio Day was actually declared to be Trio Day in Utah. And I don't know what other I don't know, Trio organizations did on that day, but I would like to know if anybody wants to put in the chat portion what volunteer activities you may be engaged in. That would be nice to know.
I would like to say something. This is Maggie from Trio SSS. A lot of our staff members and students did take a picture saying do something kind with what they did, and they posted it with the hashtag of Trio Day and as Trio SSS. So we did some of the activities. We might share some of the pictures if I can get them.
Oh, that would be so cool. Thanks, Maggie. I appreciate it. If anybody else has them, that would be nice to put on our website. That would be really nice.
So the governor did formally, so the only thing that didn't come through then was the
paperwork,
the official announcement to us. I wondered, okay, I see.
I think COVID took over. Sorry, that was more important. So we'll do it next year. We'll do something else next year, and we'll make it even bigger. So if you want to keep me on, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. Government relations, the chair, Chip Sharp. I will speak. Chip, I don't believe Chip is with us. Chip, are you on the call? Yeah, Chip was not able to be at policy. He's done a good, like, he's been very interested as government relations chair, but for this year wasn't able to participate for reasons well beyond his control. So I'll just give you all an update on policy. We had a very good delegation for Utah. And thanks to Rachel Lund and Samantha Hill, and I pitched in, we worked together to organize the visits with our congressional members. Rachel Lund procured our final appointment that I hadn't seen we would get. And a lot of gratitude to Rachel for that. And Samantha led up during our times in the actual visits with a lot of the asks that we did. I think there were a dozen of us, if that's correct, that were in those meetings. I mean, many folks on here I recognize were there. And it seems like when we had the members of the congressional offices on the call, we equaled 13. Is that correct? I don't know why I never got an official number. Does anyone remember the exact number? Jamie, do you remember? Samantha? Kyle?
I'm pretty sure you're right. We were 13.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So yeah, and then like Stephanie Salvador mentioned, she dropped in when we were having the meeting with Arjun, the educational legislative assistant for Senator Romney's office. That was nice to have her come. Our scholarship committee, Carol Sainsbury, thank you so much for your efforts. I don't know if you'd like to give any more updates versus the announcement of the scholarships. Carol, are you with us on the call?
Carol stepped out for a minute, Anthony,
Oh.
so she's not here.
Okay. I think we saw the efforts, the results of the great efforts from Carol and that committee. So thanks so much to the scholarship committee. They really do have a nice streamlined process. And you know, okay, so here comes a little bit of Anthony's statistician. One of the things about guaranteeing or showing that processes are random is that sometimes things don't look as random. So when Carol was mentioning that the readers have no idea who they're reading and they only read partial parts of the scholarship applications, we still sometimes see groupings of different institutions or programs that receive more or less scholarships. That's actually one of the signs of randomness. So I think that, there you go. I think that can be another bravo for that process. Anyway, thanks so much to our scholarship team.
Since Carol's not here, may I take a point of personal privilege?
Yes.
As we're trying to create this scholarship for the region, which, like I said, details will be coming out. I just wanted to thank Carol and everyone at USU Logan because the process is done so well and was created so well that that's something that we really feel that we can emulate. And I know that's something that Carol and your office created. So we appreciate that work that we can hopefully emulate on the regional level.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll make sure to pass that along to Carol. And Janice, I think, is just in the actual office space. If Janice, you want to convey that message. So, and there's a lot of thanks in the chat that she will hopefully see. Our Utah State Conference, proof is in the pudding as we're all coming towards the end of that. We've seen it's been such a great, motivating, informational, strategic, powerful experience. Thanks very much again to Barney and the committee. I don't know if you have any additional words you'd like to share, Barney. Any behind the scenes comments about some of the real struggles of making a conference work? Any of the choice language?
I have run out of words. Yeah, well, the only words I have left are 4-letter words at this point in my week. So yeah, I've run out of the words. But again, I'm just glad folks participated, and I want to, we enjoyed the opportunity UVU to host, and we're good to go for about 8 more years. So thanks everybody for hanging with us too and showing up a year late.
We'll count it as a precursor to the after times. It's so interesting to live through such a big event that there will always be the before and the after time to this.
It's true.
A little sub note or about the conference guidebooks within the conference committees. I've already mentioned those as part of business, but having those will also fit well into strategic plan with respect to communication, timing of like what's happening at Aspire during the year. I feel like that's just a really good piece to that puzzle. Moving on to the fact book, another appeal. I will send another request out to programs, to the directors that we haven't received APR data. You know, part of me, and just one concern with the pandemic conditions, you know, I don't know if there was hesitancy or, you know, if some APR things to report were not at all the way we'd planned or came in, you know, under or didn't achieve. I still think, you know, that's reflective of the reality of the world that we've navigated through this past year and that we're continuing through. So yeah, I'll be sending out one more request to project about that. And finally, alumni committee. Eddie, are you with us today? I know we had Sam and Samantha. Rebecca was there.
I can just, well, he was actually surprised his name was still on there. I don't remember the name of the person who he said was taking over. Or who had said they were taking over. So I'll ask him again and
okay, Rebecca.
I'll get that name to Samantha so she can put it on there.
Okay. So actually, and that may be you know,
and follow up with the person to make sure they're still aware.
Yeah, that's
and
okay.
If they're not, then maybe someone else who will, do it.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. You know, and this well-timed on the strategic planning, talking about the power of alumni. During our meetings, Mike Anderson multiple times had talked about how the ebb and flow of recognition of the importance and value of the work, and the struggle across time for some traction. So I think getting that enacted is an ingredient in this plan. I think looking forward to that. All right, that's the committees. Let me share my screen again. That's committee reports. Thanks again to everyone that's participated with committees, to everyone that's chairing committees for the work that we do as Aspire. Now I will try and find, actually, I'm gonna, don't get dizzy, but I'm gonna be bouncing back. I just realized that I missed point 9C as we began today, talking about hosting schedules for upcoming conferences. I wanted to, because we got delayed by COVID, I thought it would be very worth discussion of timeline for these conferences. I put together, and many of you will see, I think, like a brownish reddish note here at the bottom. Notice that my copy of the agenda is slightly different. Wednesday, after I thought about it more, something in my mind kept triggering that we had an agenda, that we had a more complete schedule. And then I remembered that it was in the operating guidelines that we had voted on back in 2018. So what you're seeing here is not the actual years that we voted, that we discussed in hosting conferences, but it does reflect the turn taking that was in the OGs. So 2021 UVU has hosted a very successful Utah conference, a state conference, and then COVID again with the youth leadership, that did not occur. Slick is ready to pass the torch on that. Let's see if something's coming in the chat. Oh, 2014 Kyle was Slick. Okay, thank you. I don't know if I can edit my own document. Let's see if I can. Thank you. I'll make that change. So Slick is ready to pass the torch on the youth leadership. If we just go by the turn taking, this is the way that it looks in the OGs. I'm actually going to open up the OGs really quick to show you where this came from. And then I'd like to have a discussion if this is still acceptable to everybody. So here's the most recent copy of our, within the operating guidelines. And the turn taking, if you notice, this is what is reflecting. So we had planned in 2018, a decade out is what we had looked at. So we had actually established this. How are each of the institutions feeling about these particular terms? Why don't we, I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to the agenda item where it's now adjusted for years based on the COVID interruption. I think maybe the easiest thing might be to do just to step through each year by institution. So let's look at the state conference first. DSU for next year, 2022. I believe there was actually some discussion about maybe passing the hotel between the reservation that we canceled on the second time in Lehigh to keep it in the same family to Dixie area. However, there was no loss. We were just allowed to cancel. So it's open season. Anyway, and I guess it isn't DSU anymore. Janet, what is this again? Question mark SU? We'll call it that, question mark SU. But the artist formerly known as Dixie, is this 2022, is that acceptable to your institution? Because what I'm noticing is there seems to be this interesting turn where the state conference gets hosted and then within the next year or two, the youth leadership hits the same campuses. That's the way the votes had come in. Let's see, someone has a chat message.
Anthony, this is Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
And we'll take charge of the 2022 state conference. And the new name is Downwinder State University.
Could you? Oh, okay.
Can you say that again? What was it?
Downwinder State University. And then if that doesn't pass the legislature, then it's Dragon Slayer State University because of St. George, the Dragon Slayer. So I think Downwinder is the top choice right now, hoping the legislature will pass that. Yesterday was April Fool's. So we don't know what our name's going to be. We're a school without an identity, but we'll find something somehow, somewhere, sometime.
Well, you don't have to remove the D from any of your memorabilia then, I guess.
That's right. That's why I'm pushing down the state.
Nice, that's very efficient. Nice cost savings.
Yeah, because we know how cheap the legislature is.
Yeah, you don't have to change the mountain either. Well done.
The D on the hillside so bold will stay, but it will be a glowing neon green rather than the red of the fire. Anyway, it's good to see you guys laugh.
Okay, well, thanks, Jonathan.
We'll take charge of the conference next year. All the planets are Greg and Chris. Kidding, because they're not there.
All right, so the to be named university for next year. We
That's
then have,
St. George Clay. Yeah, just put it at St. George Clay.
that's a good way.
I'm gonna probably hold it in the seat, so we'll see.
All right, we'll call it St. George. And now Slick, I don't know if anyone we hadn't had anybody from Slick. Is anybody on the call with us from Slick today? I'll have to follow up with them.
I just want to say that if there are years where it's the same, to leave that, I mean, that might be up to the university, just because the student leadership conference is done by the access programs.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, if the access programs are willing to take that on, and maybe the SS program is willing to take on the state conference, I don't know. So personally, that way, I don't think it's too big of a deal, but other people may have other opinions on that.
Thanks, Rebecca. I mean,
Well,
there
just
was a
really-
vote. Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah, since I'm over our access and support, that's a big ask on our end. So,
Well, I wasn't talking about you, Kyle.
well, no, that you said, you know, some people might feel differently.
I guess it would affect you.
Yeah, I think it would be a big ask for some like us. because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
within 1 unit. So just wanted to throw that out.
Well, so my thought is that we have because we've had 2 years without having this youth leadership, the student leadership. I think that kind of gives us a little bit of a reset that we might be able to reorganize to avoid some of those back-to-back, right, close calls. So one thought I have is that we just step through and make sure we're all okay with the state conference turns, and then maybe we might adjust some of these other turns separately. Thoughts, if everybody's cool with that, then let's stay on the state conference, institution by institution. I will have to follow up with Slick to make sure they're still good with that. Actually, let's put a question mark here. USU, this would be us and Logan. I'm willing to say yes, we would give it a go, because I know Jamie hosted, I think, this one. That was, and then we have USU Eastern coming up, you know, a couple years after that. So I would think that USU must mean us and Logan. U of U, Kyle, that would be 2025. And then that's a thumbs up. And then Eastern, Rachel, that would be 2026. Rachel, you cool with that? Maybe he's not at this moment.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. Yes, we're
Okay.
happy to do it.
Okay, excellent. So I think this maintains the exact same order of conferences as in the OGs. It just has been adjusted because of the 1 year hiccup. That if we could call COVID a hiccup, wouldn't that just be amazing? But we'll keep that in place then for this. If we look at student youth or student leadership conference, Snow, if you know, it's you hosted the last live state conference. How would you feel about 2022 for youth leadership?
It's a possibility for us to do that. This is my first year I'm co-directing SSS and UB. So the leadership conference is a new deal for me. If we can get a commitment of schools who are going to come, and do people want to come to Ephraim?
So I know there was 1 year where it was people weren't signing up as much, I remember, but then I also want to say there was a year when the weather was bad and made travel, but I don't, maybe my memory is not always the best anymore. But I think for those, whether you're traveling south to north or north to south, I know we normally have it's still considered winter. And so just a thought about, and I know sometimes we're running into like the state conference if we wait a little bit or something like that, or policy, but and I don't know if there's an answer to that, if there's really like a better time where the travel might be better. But yeah. Yeah, I'm willing to bring students to snow.
Rachel, when you had it in Price, was it regularly, was there same attendance as other years? Did it seem to dip when it was there?
No, it was about the same as it had been. I think the year before had been Weber. Am I totally remembering that wrong? Nope, the year before it had been many years since Weber. From my recollection, which is not strong, we had good participation.
Okay. All right.
I mean, meaning I don't remember the numbers, but there were a lot of kids there and I think it went really well. So I think it's worth traveling to all parts of the state.
Okay.
Other than our naughty kids that year, sorry.
That was good times. It's okay. We love them. That's what we do.
Yeah, wasn't it though?
And then the one thing with in Ephraim is we're limited on hotels and that. Is this usually held in the spring?
It's usually held, I believe, in March.
I think it's February.
Oh, okay, February. So definitely not spring.
We're good to tentatively plan on it, and we can.
Okay.
We'll have to look at it and see how we can plan it out for us.
All right. With respect to 2023, where we have the St. George Downwinder year by year, that is back to back. Is that a big issue? And if so, it seems like readjusting would be in order. So if I just look down here based on, what if we were to move to say Weber State in that turn? I have not, this is just almost random. I don't know what that is with respect to the best way to do it, but I'm just thinking UVU just did the state conference, right? So looking up this turn list, it seems like Weber State was the furthest down. So thoughts? Weber State, Rebecca?
I can't speak for UB, but I'm good with Talent Search with doing it.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been a while. So,
and Jamie reminded me, sorry, it was the year it was at Weber that that's how bad my memory is, that the weather was an issue. So people going from south to north. So anyway.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I guess we're good with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2023. And then I don't know that UVU, this would give you a 2-year break actually a 3-year break. So UVU, if you did youth leadership in 2024, that would be, I guess, Talent Search, Upward Bound. I don't know, EOC. I don't know if that's
EOC serves just adults, so they're
adults.
not really leadership.
So it'd be Upward Bound.
Upward Bound mostly, Talent Search.
So that would be Mike Campbell, and then you have Talent Search, or you just wrote Talent Search?
We just wrote Talent Search, so.
Okay, so you will have it then, right?
Obviously, and so we'll have double the staff at that point too, so. Unless Michael Campbell starts screaming at me, I'm saying it's okay, but you're welcome to scream through the microphone, Michael, if you don't think so.
We're good.
Okay.
Okay. And then the one that we had moved, that was the St. George. So what if we just shifted you up to one St. George team? That would be Kitty and Craig and who else? Is that the access groups down there? Jonathan, is anyone else from St. George on with our group today? Do you know?
Valerie and I are here with the SUU group in Torrey, which has been wonderful. Kitty will probably be retired by then, and Craig, so there'll probably be some new people in place. So that's far enough out that it may work. And one more thing while we're talking about, while I have most of you on the line, as we look at the state conference, St. George in March and April is really bad for hotels and spring break. So be thinking about moving our state conference in St. George to May. That means college programs will be out by then, and high school programs, they pretty much got their upper bound program all set. So I'm looking at maybe the second week in May rather than having it the first of April or the last of March because of hotel prices in St. George and St. George travels. So be thinking about that, people across the state, for having our state conference the second week of May for price and accessibility. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
There may be some academic year folks. I don't know how many folks like our program that are done after the graduation ceremonies, but
yeah, I know that all of the post-secondary, they're usually done by the first week of May. And that would be a good time for us to, host it. And we can have campus facilities, which would make it even cheaper because we wouldn't have to, we could schedule it on campus and one building and have it self-contained in one building. And then there's a lot more vacancies in hotels at that time of year than it is in the early spring when people leave northern Utah to infiltrate our town and ruin our lifestyle.
okay. And then who do we not have represented? So the U of U, let's see, U of U conference would be right then. And it seems to me most likely SUU is going to be the next on the state conference, right? So who would have hosted
Anthony, the rotation is always going to be a little off because U of U Logan doesn't have pre-college programs. It doesn't host the student leadership conference.
Right.
So there are times that it's further away than others, but I think that's what's throwing the rotation off.
Rachel, thanks. That's a very good point. So maybe would it be back to USU, either Eastern or USU? No, because you've got that right. This would be Price here. I don't know, should we wait and in October decide for 2026? My brain isn't working. Everything I'm thinking isn't fitting. Does anybody see a good piece for that puzzle right there?
SUU.
I'm thinking SUU is going to be the next state conference the year after in 2027, just looking at this, right?
We're okay to do it in 2026. I mean, who knows where everyone will be at that time, but put us down. We're happy to, we like it.
And but so you want to do both in the 2026?
I'm not afraid.
You should be.
Okay, we've got our fearless leader. Okay, Rachel, I put it in for now. I mean, 2026 is a little bit out in case we have to readdress this. All right. So we do have approvals, at least from folks representing each institution, except for SLIC. I will follow up with them to make sure 2023 works. If that is not the case, in October, we will readdress the conference 2 years out from now. But as things stand, I'm gonna stop sharing, but as things
That
stand.
was the missing puzzle piece, was Slick. Sorry, just as you were saying that out loud, I looked and that's the
Ah.
puzzle piece.
Okay, I am going to, Barney, I'm in a hurry and fix that.
Change 2026 to Slick for student leader.
Yeah, they will, hopefully they will get past the trauma of 2 canceled. We'll give that a go. And I will ask them about that. That gives them, they would have a 2-year break, so. All right. Thanks everyone for, yes, Rachel is still fearless. Thanks everyone so much for participating in this group scheduling effort. Luckily, we're not trying to be an airline. And I don't know how many big things get scheduled. This seems complex enough to me. That being said, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Do we have any good of the order? I think that's open for everybody. Is that what that's called, Rachel? Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, anyone?
I would like to take a good of the order. I just want to, when stuff happened for policy, both Anthony and Samantha really stepped up kind of last minute to make sure that everything was coordinated and scheduled. And I really appreciate the work that both of you did. I think policy was really successful, mostly because of your willingness to step up and serve.
No, you're very welcome. I'm so glad to support Utah Aspire. So,
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
all right.
This is Jonathan. I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting from Jonathan Morel.
Barney, I'll second.
Barney, second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. This convenes Utah Aspire 2021. Thank you all. Great to see everybody. Enjoy your Friday.
Thanks, everyone.